Hello everyone, we are Team Dolphin. This is our final presentation. We will talk about climate change in Indonesia. First, we will talk about the problems caused by climate change in Indonesia. There are 5 problems. The first one is agriculture. Rainy season ending earlier because of increasing temperature. Agriculture has the hardest impact, especially in the poor area. Second is economy. GDP slightly decreased and CPI increased by a small amount. The third point is ecosystem. Because of climate change, the sea level will increase and thousands of islands will lose. And the next one is environmental institution. Lack of clearly mandate between central and regional area. The country needs to improve many environmental policies and applications. The last point is human health. It's more difficult to drink clear water, and a lot of diseases are easily to transmit. They are getting worse about healthy issue. At the same time, Indonesia also get opportunities for climate change, such like endowed with resource for renewable energy, geothermal energy and hydropower. Province and districts to develop and implement plan adapted to local preference. The abundant nature resource could constitute a solid base for economic, narrow the gap between rich and poor people. A large potential of innovative carbon funding for avoided deforestation.
Now, we will compare the period before and after industrial evolution in Indonesia. Before industrial evolution, Indonesia is a predominant agricultural production-based country, and it had a high rate of poverty because of the closed economy and heavily intentionalist policies. It means that the country don't have a free trade with outside market, and the government enact a lot of rules to conduct the economy. In the middle 1960s, Indonesia has still one of the least industrialized of the large developing countries. Poverty was widespread in economic and political. However, after the industrial evolution, it changes to industrial-based with market-oriented economy, and the poverty rate decreased because people have to trade with other countries. Rapid growth of economy has benefited a large share of the populations. So, poverty rate fell from more than 70% in the middle 1960s to 11% in 1996. In the 1970s and the 1980s, oil production had a high importance. It can get 1 million barrels of oil per day, accounting for 60% of its exports, with oil revenues contributing about 17% of the state budget. So from the middle 1980s onward, manufacturing has been the driving force behind economic growth.
Now we're going to talk about the history of fuel in Indonesia. In the past, because of the economical situation in Indonesia, it's pretty difficult to prospect fossil fuel, even though there's a ton of fuel resources in Indonesia. I think Indonesia is a pretty different country from others because it's a country with lots of little island continent. So the country is surrounded by sea and it's on the Pacific Ocean. But all we know that is the fuel resources in the sea is plentiful. As a matter of fact, before the government they don't do communication with other countries a lot, but later they realized that they should do that and combine with other countries to help them because they own lots of natural resources which are undeveloped. And now they got a lot of investment from other countries like America and Europe, which assists them to do the resource exploration. As the field exploration in Indonesia, the emission increased dramatically. The carbon emission related to other countries. I think this is about the location of Indonesia because it's on the sea and it's pretty much could spread the emission to everywhere in a simple way and a fast way. As the industrialized revolution going on, the emission in Indonesia are increasing currently. And because the location I just said, it's really easy to transport and flow to other countries' ocean territories so they can get into their continents in the end. So the emission from Indonesia are easily to be transported and has a negative influence on other countries, especially the countries in Asia and the countries around Indonesia.
Now, I'm going to talk about the history of deforestation in Indonesia. So, Indonesia, as a developing country with many natural resources, including forest as a means of development. Consequently, discussion on history of deforestation and forest degradation in Indonesia are inseparable from Indonesia political economic context. The first period in Indonesia is 1960 to late 1982. This is the economic downturn for Indonesia. The government issued law to use forests and other natural resources to generate capital for economic recovery. The second period is in 1982 to the 1990s. Indonesia led the world plywood market and was in the top 10 plywood producing countries. The next will be 1990 to 1998. The major event during this period is government encouraged growth the plywood industry. Post of 1998, the president finally stepped down in May 1998. The IMF required the renewal of forest policy. This latter, in the long term, applied the new forest development plan, justice in forest resource. However, the political is hard to complete because the government and some second third party has interest conflict.
Then we will talk about the relationship between Indonesia and UNFCCC. Indonesia signed the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change on the June 5, 1992. On August 1, 1994, the President of the Republic of Indonesia approved the Act of Ratification of UNFCCC number on June 1994. And on the other hand, Indonesia strongly supports the objective of UNFCCC to prevent the anthropogenic gas concentration in the atmosphere exceeding a level that would endanger the existence of life reason.
There are several major instances of Indonesia's involvement in the UNFCCC. The first one is Indonesia hosted a Conference of Parties 13 in Bali on December 2007. The Bali Roadmap, which includes Bali Action Plan, was adopted in the conference. The plan is divided into 5 main categories. There are shared vision, mitigation, adaptation, technology, and financing. It also made some decisions and agreed by Indonesia. The first one is establish the Adaptation Fund Board. The fund is financed by a 2% share of certified emission reductions issued for any projects implemented under the Clean Development Mechanism of Kyoto Protocol and the financial contributions committed by UN member states. The second one is reducing emissions from deforestation in developing countries. The third one is development and transfer technology to developing countries. The last one is review of the financial mechanism, going beyond existing global environments, facility.
Now we move on to the climate change affect vulnerable people in Indonesia. Uh, we pick two mainly group people in Indonesia. We call the vulnerable population. One is women and one is local Indonesians. The local Indonesian we caught is pribami, and they are pretty similar to the indigenous people in Australia. They living in a pretty original way, and they live near to the land, and they pretty much do everything based on the natural resources. Another indigenous people we choose is Indonesia Chinese. They are one of those different groups of people in Indonesia which are originally from South China since the Dutch colony period. Okay, the first one we had the effect about the climate change on those people as the droughts, increased flood, and more frequent and sort of storm might lead to major agricultural losses and substantial drop in food productivity, which is pretty important to those people in Indonesia because they mostly rely on those things. The second one is the education opportunity decreasing. I think because as the government set more money onto the climate change management, so they, um, like the women, they don't have that much opportunity for their education, and now they cut their money for education, so their opportunities are decreasing. The third one is the warming ocean temperature, sea level rise, and increased storm will impact coastal system by increasing coral bleaching events. They can change the fish availability. So that means they're gonna change the creature in the seas, and also they're gonna change coastlines and mangroves and extract spading risk to human health, affecting millions of people. Uh, I think we can see that the risk of diseases for human being will decrease by changing the climate change of the sea. So based on what we have those problems before, so we got two treatments from Indonesia about how to treat women and indigenous people in Indonesia. The first one, we got more supportive from the government to give more money to local people um, to support their live in a pretty original lifestyle, which they have it. And also, the women are getting harder to live if they only live by agriculture. So then the government should give more money and support them on the agriculture, which is good. Um, as the kind of like guarantee from the government to give their more stable life. Another one is the Indonesia set up their mind to change the climate into a better direction with the cooperation of government and public. In here, the public is not only mean the people who live in Indonesia, also the other countries and organizations in the world. So the capital investment of climate change with high tech needs to be increasing. Not only like their own country, they also the other international organization to show their report for Indonesia as well, like UNFCCC.
And now we want to talk about the recommendation for the future generations. First, stopping the use of fire as a tool for land clearing. Improving logging practice so less timber is left to rot and goes to waste. And third, reforestation of areas degraded by irreplaceable logging practices. And the last one is the new tools to reduce the emissions, REDD plus. And next, we want to talk about the analyze between cost and benefit. About the cost, people have to find some other ways to dissolve the checks such as recycling and reusable materials. New materials and solutions will cost a lot because of the huge investment of exploration and experiment. And there is some laws on cultivated lands, food production decreasing for now. And next, about the benefits. Stopping using the fire as a normal tool for landing, clearing, and decreasing using of the fossil fuel and natural resources a good way to protect the environment. And improving the efficiencies of timber is an important aspect of environment protection by the climate change. And the last one, to protect the environment and give more credits to our future generation. More tree growing is fundamentally necessary to keep our living place more simple and smooth. More significantly, and it is a great investment for our future, for our kids.
Here are our recommendations, which can be related to games we played in class. Our first recommendation is stop using fire as a tool for land clearing, which related to tag game about different generations. By new method to do land clearing is necessary for future generations, creating a better environment for their sustained development. The second recommendation is improving the efficiency of natural resources. It is related to an intergen game, which is about how to maximize the efficiency of using resources. Distinct group of people has different limitation of natural resources. For example, for fossil fuel, process of human development is closely related to how we treat and use our resources. The last one is reforestation of areas degraded by unsustainable logging, which is related to tag and pieces games. Benefits from reforestation is that assist future generations achieve better development opportunities and possibilities. Reforestation is a good way to keep away from cultural disappearing, especially to the local indigenous culture. They are the most original local people.
There are at least four main cost components in REDD program. The first one is the biggest opportunity cost is foreground land use. The second one is REDD development cost, which are costs related to readiness of Indonesia to implement REDD carbon credit merchants to meet standard of the World Bank Forest Carbon Partnership Facility. The third one is REDD implementation cost. Those costs are costs associated with action to reduce deforestation. The fourth is transaction cost. Transaction cost is different from implementation cost because they do not themselves reduce deforestation or forest degradation, but they need to establish transparency and credit for REDD programs. The fifth part is other non-market cost. For the benefit part, revenue from REDD credit is the biggest and most relevant benefit of REDD program. This program aims to make forests more valuable than be cut down by creating financial value of the carbon stored in trees. REDD credit is sold in the market with tons of CO2 saved as a unit. The theory of justice. So basically, our recommendation is aimed to help the future generation and also protect the vulnerable people to give them a better environment to survive. So the first one is Indonesia will use a portion of revenue to help women and other people. In the meantime, government should also provide job for them. The second one is government still needs to encourage people to use natural resource and land efficiency. The last one is Indonesia near the ocean and consistent by many islands, so government should give more support on tourism.
The concerns of vulnerable group. We choose the vulnerable group people in Indonesia is pribumi, Reforestation can keep away from cultural dispersing, especially the locally indigenous culture. They are the most originally local people in Indonesia, whose culture should be protected. Reforestation plays a positive role in indigenous people's life. However, it is not good as well on women's side, because women are mostly responsible for household and agriculture planning. With cultivated land get less, their production become less. If people find an efficient way to use natural resources, then they can leave more resources to their descendant, which can keep their culture for a long time. This is our works cited. And this is a presentation of Team Dolphin. Thank you for watching.